just ridiculous. But right now, I want to talk about the Big 12 and this move that is likely to be made today with the conference's school presidents deciding to go to a 9+1 schedule at a time when, let's recap, the Ivy Leagues first said, we're not playing football this fall. We're not doing it. And they don't make a lot of money from football. They don't depend on football to keep the money moving. They depend on their reputation as great academics institutions. Then we saw Kevin Warren, Big Ten commissioner, just kind of went out in front of everybody and said, no, we're going conference only. And we're making that decision right now, even as they still haven't actually put together what the schedule is going to look like. And then we saw the ACC decide that they too are going to go with a conference only schedule for the most part, right? They're going to allow like the one game. And we get to see what Notre Dame looks like as a part of a conference, let alone the ACC, with games already scheduled against North Carolina and Clemson. They could be in a conference championship game with Clemson. And then we saw the SEC decide that it's going to go with a version of a conference-only schedule. Remains to be seen if they're going to allow more than one non-conference game. And now we have supposed to let me back up with this. So last Thursday, get an email from the Big 12 conference office going, hey, we're going to have media day on August 3rd. Here's the schedule. Here is the access information for media members. And, naturally here, we're excited about that sort of content and trying to make plans to do it. And then later that afternoon, hey, Big 12 media day is canceled for August 3rd. And shortly after that, we learn that the Big 12 is going to have its own in-house conference. Its own in-house media day. Because they know what you know, which is that we would have showed up there with all sorts of questions. And we would have wanted answers for how they are planning to do this thing called college football. So right now, we still have Oklahoma scheduled to begin the season against Missouri State in less than a month's time now. But will that game be allowed to be played? 1. 2, will it be played on August 29th? And 3, when does the actual Big 12 season start? Because right now, we're looking at 5 different week 1s. 5. We're looking at September 5th. We're looking at September 12th. We're looking at September 26th. We don't even know that Oklahoma's going to get to play the game against Army. And we already basically been made to understand there aren't going to be any fans at that game. And because that game is such a big deal to Oklahoma fans and Black Knight fans, there has been a movement that I support to reschedule that game and to fill it with something else. And what we have also seen is that these athletic directors and these school presidents have been really good about scheduling games quickly. As a matter of fact, BYU is looking at everybody going, who wants to play? We got a ball. We call next. We got next. Because as a GDI, as an independent, they are left holding the bag. They got 5 games on their schedules that went poof. And they would love nothing more than to be able to schedule Big 12 opponents. And since we have news this morning that the Sun Belt will stick with its 12-game schedule and try to get 4 non-con games in there, or 4 games of that kind, I'm really interested to see what exactly goes on, 1, with the rest of the group of 5, and 2, with the Big 12, because there's obviously an appetite for as many football games as possible. But what seems to be most interesting is which school presidents think they can get away with this and which do not. I submit to you, Joe Harris, Burns Hargis, they're going to get the A-OK go-ahead from the majority of Oklahomans. I'm not one of them, but that doesn't seem to matter much now, does it? Meanwhile, Texas is going to try to get some games in because they were hurting like Oklahoma's hurting. They had a game with LSU that they wanted to get played in Baton Rouge. They had a loss to avenge. They had a game with national championship implications for the 2nd straight year. Hell, they played 2 teams that played in the college football playoff last year. They wanted nothing more than to take the most talented football team that Tom Herman has ever put together and take it back to Baton Rouge to try to get themselves a nice little W. But now, they're left with the best game on their schedule being Oklahoma, and an opportunity to avenge that loss, and perhaps opportunity to avenge Iowa State, who could be pretty doggone good. Add to this, what is the rest of the Texas college football scene gonna look like? Because we got a myriad of different start dates, not just across college football, but in that state altogether. Like right now, Oklahoma is one of 4 states that is continuing to open football and play scheduled high school football on time. Everybody else has either pushed the date back, has varying start dates, or completely said, nope, we're not playing football this fall. So you have school presidents that are going to meet today who have to figure out what that actually means for each one of them. And when you have coast-to-coast schools, right? You got to go as far west as Iowa State. You got to go as far east of West Virginia. You're going to have a lot of different attitudes and a lot of different problems on this. But taking a look at the states at which many of the Big 12 schools are in, I see no reason as to believe that they're not going to play college football just as soon as they possibly can. And they're going to try to schedule whomever they can to play these games. And knowing that they're going to try to schedule whomever they can to play these games, we're also having this open question of who gets to have fans and who don't. Because while this is interesting, because we're living in this unprecedented time where we're going to see conference-only schedules for like the first time in, maybe ever, right? If you really get after it. Post-World War II, this hasn't happened. I want to know who gets to go. I want to know what media members that other places are going to have. Like I believe at Oklahoma, they're going to allow 1 per outlet, and they're going to socially distance and wear masks at the games. I want to know if there are any repercussions or any revenue sharing to be done when your game is on television or not on television, because I can imagine that you're not going to try to put as many of these on television as possible. And that game that Oklahoma wants to play against Missouri State, today it's still a pay-per-view game. Today it's still one that you're going to pay $50, $60 to watch. And I suspect there are going to be more people that pay that money to watch it than have paid it in years past. And that includes 2018 when Oklahoma played Army on pay-per-view. And y'all were pissed. Y'all were so mad about that. I can't imagine that Fox Sports and ESPN wouldn't want to get some of that, right? Especially knowing that they are hurting it as well. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about everybody being hurt. It's about who's going to get hurt the most. Who cannot not play football? That is a question that I would really love to hear the answer to from university presidents. Now, as we get the answer, and I expect to know something by Monday tomorrow or Tuesday tomorrow, there's also this little bit of uncertainty where a solution might not be had today. I doubt that, because one of the things that we have seen is these guys will make decisions. They'll figure out the rest later. They'll make a decision. And as you get closer and closer to either you have to play or you don't get to play, and you try to figure out whether or not you're going to try to cushion these games with basically bye weeks in between as many of them as possible so that you can have the most healthy players available to each one of these schools as possible and give, basically a healthy athletic competition out there, you're running into more problems. And because everybody keeps trying to MacGyver this thing, I don't know that... No, it's not that I don't know. I don't think this is a good idea anymore, guys. I just don't. I haven't thought this was a good idea for some time. But if you think you can pull it off, how are you going to pull it off with kids on campus? Because right now we have data to show places like Oklahoma and Notre Dame can take care of themselves until the kids got to go to class. And if you choose to go online for your fall semester and you keep those kids on campus to play football, and only the kids on campus to play football, when you've told basically everybody else to go home, we are going to come after you. Because for 50 years, you've said they're student athletes. Student comes first. Today, we're going to learn just how much that is not true or it is.